Chapter 4. Environmental Health. Environmental health. Generally, the present geographical condition around the human beings is known as environment. The human beings live in the area which has specific constituents. We know them as the land of that area, the landscapes, that is forms, the lakes, the living creatures, and the covering spread above the atmosphere. If we want to say it in details, we can say that the constituents like the landscape of a state or a nation, the mountains spreaded over that land, high-level land areas, plain area grounds, or other landforms, lakes, atmosphere, trees, plants, grass, etc. areas, the condition being developed from the frictions of the living creatures is known as environment. Environment is the integrated form of all the living, physiological, and chemical components present on the earth. They affect the human beings and are affected by the human beings. According to the World Dictionary, the environment is subtotal of all ages, traditions, and the miraculous powers, which was the effect on the living creatures, the developments of their races, their lives, and the deaths. Environment word is self-sufficient in its meaning. If we separate the conjunction of the word environment, it becomes pari plus avran, where the meaning of pari is from surrounding and that of the avran is covering. Thus, the existence of the covering around the human being is environment. That is, the geographical condition around the human being is called environment. The word environment is evolved from the French language word envires. Some other statements presenting the meanings of environment are as under. Environment is the sum total of living and lifeless components, their effects and incidents residing around the alive composition. The relation between conscious and unconscious substances on the earth is environment. Every alive composition tries to remain suitable with the media around him doing constantly the interaction. This media around him is called environment. In short, it can be said that environment is everything existing around us. In that is environment, there is a complex covering arising out of the interrelations of the coverings around. These coverings are the covering of clay, covering of water, covering of air, and the covering of the living creatures. With the help and the cooperation of these four natural coverings, that is clay, water, air, and living creatures, a specific covering or the condition is created to which we call environment. The clay covering includes land surface and the different landforms over it. The water covering includes the oceans, sub-oceans, seas, bays, estuaries and the rivers, lakes and other water forms over the land fragments. In atmosphere, the air, sunlight, temperature, humidity, and the raining condition is considered as the component of environment. In live creatures, different animals, birds, trees, plants, and grass, etc. means total live creatures are included which are spread and existing in the world. Human beings are one of the parts of live creatures. Air, water, land, humidity, temperature, wind, sunlight, moonlight, the sky rays are the outer components. These substances create the incidents on the live and lifeless world. All these are included in environment. The health of the creatures including the human beings and the health of insects, birds, and the world of trees, plants, and the grass depends upon the environment. Hence, the live creature world's health depends upon the prosperity of the environment. In reality, the environment is the unit of all the resources and the managements. In other words, environment is the natural relation between the human beings and the nature. Types of environment. According to the present situation of the environment, its different types are formulated to understand it easily. River, sea, mountain, land, atmosphere, etc. are the natural components which have effects on living creatures. Over and above the components like cities, industries, social relationships have the effect on the human beings. If we want to see the meaning of environment extensively, the environment of human beings is the group of the components affecting the human beings. Environment, natural environment, human-created changing environment. Natural environment, lifeless or physical environment, water covering, clay covering. Biological environment, atmospheric covering, leaf covering. Human-created changing environment, social environment, cultural environment. From above environments, now we shall know regarding the physical environment, biological environment, and social environment, which are included in the syllabus. Physical environment. The environment naturally created and bestowed upon us by God is very useful and is like blessings to the human beings. In physical environment, mostly the geographical components are included. These components are surface of the earth and the landforms over the earth, the surrounding condition of the atmosphere and the present lakes. At the same time, the physical environment is created as the unit product of the three coverings, that is, clay covering, water covering, and the atmospheric covering. There is mutual balance between these coverings. Some physical cycles are naturally arranged in between these coverings like water cycle, carbon cycle, and nitrogen cycle. These cycles are called friction cycles. By means of physical environment, the human beings are being provided with food, clothes, and the requirements of the houses to stay along with natural wealth like minerals, fishes, animals, and the trees, plants, and grass. In these wealths, the wealth of trees, plants, and the grass are main. Also, along with farming, transportation, and the industrial production, the economic activities of the commercial businesses are dependent on physical environment. This physical environment is being used carelessness by the selfishness of the human beings. Because of this, the pollution of the land, water, and air has been created, which goes on increasing. This has created the fear of existence for the living creatures along with human beings. Because of such activities of the human beings, the rivers and the seas are polluted. Biological environment. The naturally created trees, plants, grass, and the animal world have created the live covering, which is called the biological environment. The most minute one-cell amoeba, the bacteria, and the elephant, the whale, the fish, an amphibious animal, seal, and colorful birds are the important part of the biological environment. Whereas the short grass, green jungles have specific contribution in the biological environment. The jungle wealth and the animal wealth have different special contribution in making the human life happy and progressive and in developing different financial activities. Human beings have created hindrances and the vanishing tendencies have created various problems in the biological environment. The hunting of the animals in haphazard manner have created the fear in their existence. In the jungles of Africa, the intense desire of ivory has ruined the lives of elephants. Against the animals like whale and seal, which are full of protein, have the fear of their hunting. The destruction of jungles of Congo Valley in Africa and the jungles of Amazon in South America have reached the dangerous level. The jungles considered as the lungs of the land are being cut for the purposes of cultivation and industrial activities. The rare races of the animals and the birds at the junctures of disappearance, for which the unthoughtful activities of human beings are responsible. From the biological environment, the woods, animals, leathers, horns, and birds are smuggled. The main cause in the destruction of the biological environment is the human being. Because of the undue interference of the human beings, our valuable wealth of biological environment is being reduced. It is our duty to protect and improve upon it. Every sector of the human life wishes to protect the biological environment. Social environment. The components of social environment are created by human beings. In these components, animal cultivation, rearing, mining of minerals, industrial production activity, transportation, business finance, cultural values, religions, mode traditions, beliefs, social organizations, languages, art literature, political and financial components, etc. are included. Human beings have prepared the household articles and furniture, buildings, cities, towns, railway, roads, bridges, reservoirs, canals for their happiness and suitability. These are the parts of social and the cultural environment. Natural environment mostly depends upon the coordination of the subparts with the birth of oneself without any external medium. But the social and cultural environments are man-made. To maintain it, the energy and other external supplements entrances are required. Man is a social animal. The biological and non-life components and various social components have the effects on the human beings. These components control the lifestyle of a man, his effect on environment and the use of natural resources. Pollution. The action of polluting the existence of live and lifeless components of environment is pollution. As it is, the word pollute is self-explanatory. It has become so harmful for the whole world that to take the note of its seriousness and worrying, we have come to know the problem with the word pollution. When the indulgence of the human beings create the hindrance in the balance of the natural environment, the action of polluting various components necessary for the lives of the live creatures is said as pollution. For human life, the necessary and unavoidable components are air, water, food, and the land. When the harmful substances are added in these components and make them dirty, we say that they are polluted. Because of the different activities of the human beings, the lakhs of metric tons of harmful substances are added in all the three components, that is, air, water, and land. These harmful substances pollute the natural environment, which is called as the pollution of the environment. For the pollution of the environment, mostly the human beings are responsible. For the adding of various pollutions in natural environment, their birth giver is the human being. The action of being polluted, the various components which are necessary for the lives of the creatures is called pollution. For pollution, the word dirtiness is used. Even then, the nature is also responsible for the creation of pollution. The human beings and the nature are spreading pollutions. As a matter of fact, various pollutions are created by the human beings in the natural environment. Pollution becomes the matter of worry when the environment becomes polluted, which is necessary for the existence of the live creatures. The reasons of pollution are obvious. It is not difficult to find out the estimate of its increasing measure, ratio, and the results. Now it is the time to establish the harmony by means of all-round study of the nature. The excess of pollution on one side and the delay to stop it on the other side may become very costly for the man. In such a case, there shall not be any other option, except it as an eyewitness. The minute study of various problems like pollution by the environment experts and the nature lovers has become of great importance. Types of pollution. The following can be types of pollution. Pollution. Nature created. Air pollution, water pollution, land pollution. Human created. Air pollution, water pollution, land pollution, sky pollution, sound pollution, others. Nature created pollution. When there is an explosion of volcano, the smoke, ash, particles, etc., when mix the atmosphere, the air becomes polluted. The sulfur, lava, etc., when come out of a volcano and get spreaded, they pollute the land and vanish the trees, plants, grass, and other creatures. The blowing, humid air on the seashore spreads the particles of salt in the atmosphere and on the land. This pollutes both the air and the land. In the area of Saurashtra, the seawater enters the seacoast, farms, and pollute the land, which destroys the cultivation. Because of the widespreading forest fire, it pollutes the air and the land and vanishes the trees, plants, grass, animals, and the birds. The rivers in the areas covered with the jungles carry the organic substances along with the flow of water. These substances then get decayed. In this process, the oxygen is used, which decreases the portion of oxygen in the water of rivers. Such water is harmful for the fishes, other insects, and the animals in the water. The fresh examples are the explosion of Pinatubo volcano of Philippines in 1991 and the explosion of the barren island of India. Human-created pollution. The smokes and the poisonous gases coming out of the human-made factories, power stations, vehicles, etc., when mixed with the atmosphere, pollute the air. The dirty water of the factories and the gutters of the cities, when mixed up with the waters of the wells and the ponds or lakes, the water gets polluted. When such water spreads in the land, then the land becomes polluted. The human beings throw different types of garbage on the land and pollute it. The sounds of machines and vehicles and the noises of the people in crowded population area, the sound becomes polluted. For space researchers, the human beings have traveled in the space, it is also spreading pollution. Human beings have adulterated food substances and the things like air and polluted them. The Bhopal gas disaster happened in 1984 in India and Chernobyl nuclear disaster happened in Soviet Union in 1986. Both are the human-created examples of serious pollutions. Air pollution. Wherever a man is, the air is wrapped around him. If we keep our mouth and nose closed for few moments, we feel suffocate immediately. It means there are some components in the air around us which, if our body does not allow to get in, and there are some gases which are created in our body cannot go out, we feel difficulty. When we exhale, the concentration of carbon dioxide in more in that air, and when we inhale, the concentration of oxygen is more. Hence, when these concentration measures are changed, the body is put into difficulty. Composition of air. The air is the mixture of many gases having the percentages is given below. 1. Nitrogen 78.08%, that is N2 rate per thousand. 2. Oxygen 20.96%, that is O2. 3. Carbon dioxide 0.004%, that is CO2. 4. Argon and other air and evaporation of water 0.94%. Over and above the gases mentioned above, the gases like neon and helium and vapor of air, ammonia, dust particles, germs, etc. are 0.94% in the air. Air polluters. The air around us is never 100% pure. At every place, the concentration of unrequired and harmful elements is always there in plus or minus portions. But when the measure of harmful gas or the substance increases to an extent that it becomes harmful to the creatures, it is called the pollution of air. The gases which are responsible and playing important role in creating the pollution are carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, chlorine compounds, nitrogen oxide, ammonia, aldehydes, etc. Over and above if lead, radioactive substance, fungus, bacteria, dust, and the vegetation particles are in a higher concentration, they are harmful. Air and temperature also play part in spreading the pollution. If the air nearer to the land is cold and the air above is hot, the polluted air becomes dense, which harms more. The reasons of air being polluted: by means of vehicles, mills, factories, power stations, and the household fuels, innumerable particles mix with the air. By burning of poor quality coals, along with its smoke, the carbon monoxide mixes with the atmosphere, which is very poisonous and harmful to the creatures. In the places where the cross-passing of the clouds is there, we find carbon dioxide more. When this gas enters in the human body in more measure, it creates more physical difficulties. The carbon dioxide coming out of the thickly populated people's breath, the polluted gases coming out from the breaths of the patients, and the minute germs of disease and the viruses create the pollution of air. The filth and the urines of the animals and their dead bodies, rotten vegetables and fruits, stall food, etc., and the poisonous gases created because of their decays pollute the air. Such gases are methane, ammonia, and hydrogen sulfide. From the house fuels and the burning of diesel in the factories and the coals, the gases like carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide are created. These gases pollute the air. The refineries of copper, lead, zinc also spread sulfur dioxide. Defective machines and vehicles create poisonous carbon monoxide because of the incomplete burning. This gas pollutes the air. The harmful gases created because of the smokes coming out of the factories and mills, particles of the coal, fibers of cotton, particles of the flour, particles of the chemicals, and the gases created from the chemical processes pollute the air. Because of the biological life world's daily activities and because of the industries, transportation, and natural calamities, there is pollution in the air. This is air pollution. Effect of pollution on health. Because of pollution, the disease like cold, bronchitis, swelling of windpipe, asthma, cancer of lungs are developed. When the minute particles of cotton coal, the rind of sugarcane, etc. mix with the air, the disease of pneumoconiosis is developed in the lungs. Heart disease and high blood pressure increase. Mental tension is experienced and the psychosomatic disease develops. The difficulties like giddiness, suffocation, fatigue, etc. occur. Working capacity decreases. The ratio of the skin disease like skin boils, eczema, itching sensation, etc. increases. Trees, plants, and the grass vanishes or their production decreases. The production of pollution affected areas, trees, plants, and grass are harmful to the health. The animals also fall ill or die because of the use of polluted air. When animals take the food of polluted trees, plants, and grass, they fall ill. Such animals' milk and the meat eaters get damaged. According to the components of pollution, the short-term difficulties or long-term difficulties are created. For example, if the ratio of the lead composition increases because of the smoke of the vehicles, various diseases like no feeling of hunger, headache, pain in the stomach, constipation, paleness of blood get developed. If the proportion of the carbon monoxide increases, it may lead to the death. Ways and means to stop pollution and its purification. The evolving poisonous gases should be separated by special process and they should be made poisonless. Instead of pollution creating processes, other process should be found out and adopted. For example, for this, if possible, the solar energy can be used. The trees should be grown in abundance and should be tried to purify the air. The pollution spreading units should be kept under control adopting the step of law. Special experimental laboratories have been erected at international level in different countries to find out the concentration of pollution at different intervals and give the warning or the guidelines. The arrangement of enough windows and doors should be kept for the ventilation of air and light in the house and the working place, for the purification of the air in the operation theatres and the special rooms of the hospital. The ultraviolet rays and the chemical vapor can be used. Instead of burning the garbage, planning of producing garbage gas and the fertilizer pit should be prepared to create fertilizer. Burning of plastic and rubber produces the most poisonous gas. Hence, the plastic, papers, iron, leaves, refuse resulting from the kitchen or dinner, etc. should be classified at the places like house, hospital, industry, etc. and the proper disposal should be done as follows. Plastic, paper, iron. Rough pulp should be made and taken into use. Leaves, etc. garbage. Gas plus fertilizer. Refuse. Pure, impure. Pure. For the food of animals. Impure. Gas plus fertilizer. The fuel in the vehicle should be improved. Old vehicles should be repaired properly or should be removed. The vehicles producing pollution more than the decided proportion should be prohibited. For example, the rickshaw running with kerosene fuel, old buses and the trucks vomiting more smokes, etc. If possible, one should go walking if the distance is short, or the cycle should be taken in use so that one can improve the health, pollution will be less, and the accidents can be decreased. Suitable atmosphere. To know the suitable atmosphere over and above pure air, we have to keep in mind the four components like temperature, measure of humidity, velocity of wind, direction, and the radiant heat. The unit of improved effective temperature, keeping in mind these four components, are of much use. If the measure of this unit is 77 degree to 80 degree Fahrenheit, one gets restful experience and he can do his work in proper manner. If there is no enough ventilation in various places like factories, cinema theatres, indoor games, rooms, crowded bus, railway, etc., one gets suffocation and gets difficulties like the effects of influenza, tuberculosis, whooping, cough, etc. because of unbearable heat. Generally, for the ventilation of the room in a house, there should be 40% of the square measure of the room for the windows and the doors. Above this, the space for one individual in the room should be 50 to 100 square foot. The height of the ceiling minimum should be 10 feet. In the winter, keeping the door and the windows closed if one uses the hearth of cooking, or if a cigarette or bidi or hookah is ignited, their smoke can become harmful to others living in the house. The pregnant woman and the small children are more affected by such smokes. It is the responsibility of the owner of the factory to keep less measure of the pollution than the decided one. This is very necessary for the health of the workers. Because of the dangerous atmosphere, the workers can be affected by many deadly diseases. For example, loud sounds, deafness, mental tension, accident, particles, pneumoconiosis. This is the disease of lungs which always goes on increasing, for which there is no permanent treatment. Poisonous gas, death. With the use of various types fans which throw the air out of the room, removing the polluted air created near the machine, allowed to enter the air in the room with pressure and balancing the air coming in and going out. The inner atmosphere of the factories can be kept healthy. In addition, air conditioner can be used to regularize the measures of temperature, humidity, and the ventilation of air so that the germs, viruses, particles, poisonous gases can be filtered and the air can be purified. Effects of air polluters on human health. Amongst the polluters, air pollution is the main one created by human beings. This is the problem evolving from the progress made by the humans. In the names of industrialization and modernization, the pollution of the gases coming out of the smokes being released from the industries, mills, factories, thermal power stations have affected the health of human beings and the animals, birds, in short creatures. Here, we will examine the effects of the some important air polluters. Carbon dioxide. While breathing in, almost there is no presence of carbon dioxide in the air, but in the breathed out air, there is some increase in concentration of carbon dioxide and a decrease in the concentration of oxygen. The increase of carbon dioxide in the body has adverse effect on the functions of the mind and the heart. The growth of a child in the embryo is restricted, decreases the remembrance, and affects the windpipe and the veins. Carbon monoxide and cyanide. The carbon monoxide gas mixing with the polluted air is colorless and tasteless. The proportion of this gas increases because of the combustion of petrol and diesel in the areas where there is more transportation of vehicles. When carbon monoxide is uniting with hemoglobin, the capacity of the blood carrying the oxygen decreases. The eyesight becomes dim. Sometimes an individual gets fainted and sometimes the possibility of the death remaining there. When one breathes in, the carbon particles along with the air enter into the lungs. As a result, there is harm in breathing and the lungs. The possibility of being cancer in lungs increases, and along with it, the functioning of the mind also decreases and stops. Cyanide is a very poisonous substance. When it enters in the body of an individual, he dies. Sulfur dioxide. Amongst the air polluters, sulfur dioxide is the most harmful polluter. Because of the combustion of coal and mineral oil, the evolved gas sulfur, when combines with oxygen, it is converted into sulfur dioxide gas and mixes with the air. While breathing, if sulfur dioxide enters the body, it will harm the lungs. It also harms the respiratory system. The direct effect of sulfur dioxide is on the eyes, throat, lungs, and windpipe, creating the disease of burning in the throat, lungs, difficulty in breathing, asthma, and the disease like coughing, cold also get created. It harms to the heart too. Lead. Lead invites the disease of mind and the reproductive system. It increases the weakness of bones and creates blood pressure. Hydrocarbon and nitrogen oxide. Hydrocarbon decreases the resistance power against the disease of the human body. It infects the lungs and invites the disease of lungs. Nitrogen oxide pollution creates the burning sensation in the eyes, decreases the eyesight capacity, and develops the disease of heart and lungs. Radioactive particles. The radioactive dust makes much of the harms to the human health and the environment, creating the possibilities of developing cancer disease. There is swelling because of the intensity of the ultraviolet rays. Solid particles. Solid particles make much harm in the human body, resulting in the disease of respiration.